What other ratio do you find is helpful?
I think the longer game is your internal rate of return. I didn't really look at the internal rate of return for the first 10 years of investing. But internal rate of return is what you make on your investment in the long run. And so internal rate of return really would include the appreciation value and stuff like that. It'd be you usually kind of would make an assumption that you're going to sell it, and then because the sale captures the appreciation. So you figure in your appreciation, you figure in a lot of times in property you make money in kind of some big lump sums, like in a sale or something like that, or a refinance or something like that. So IRR is money over the long run. Why that matters is, say you bought a home 10 years later, you've paid that property down quite a bit, and if you realize the amount of equity you have in that property, say that property is at 50% loan to value because it's appreciated for the last 10 years and you've paid that principal down a bit. So say it's a $100,000 house for round math, and you have $50,000 of equity in that house, and you're making $5,000 a year. Well, $5,000 on 50 is a 10% return. That's actually not that great because you've built up so much principal. And so it's kind of what's the rate of return on what you have in that property in a holistic sense.
So you could even, looking at those ratios, right? I think in some ways, a cash-on-cash return and an IRR, in a cash-on-cash return, that's great for getting your cash back.
It's the short view.
Right, but the IRR is really the long view. So you could potentially have a low cash-on-cash return, but your forecasted IRR 5-10 years looking at appreciation in the market or getting into an area that's, might cost more to get into, but you see a ton of upside 5-10 years from now in appreciation, that deal might look better than its cash on cash return alone if you're also looking at IRR.
Yeah, to put it in simpler terms, our market is what they call cash flow market. So most deals here cash flow generally. There's not wild appreciation, not comparatively to, like, say, Austin or the West Coast or some of those markets that are doubling in value every handful of years. And so in a lot of markets, the majority of markets actually, you might buy a property and have negative cash flow, negative cash on cash return. You might put money in every year because of that big singular sale event that will have an IRR over 3 years or 5 years that's really lucrative.
Okay.
And so the IRR looks at how long it took too.
So when do you pay attention to cap rates?
Cap rates is kind of another different calculation. It's an apples to apples calculation. Every property is unique because it's property. It's one of those things that's completely unique. It's always a different location, even different spot on the block, whatever. Cap rates is a way to bring everything to apples and apples. So a cap rate is that NOI number over the value. And so it's the assumption that, say, everybody can do a different loan. Someone may come and pay it for cash. So let's take loans out of it. Our NOI number is how much money's left over after our expenses, and divided by the value is kind of the return on the investment if we paid cash. So it kind of like wipes out kind of any like, well, I'm financing it this way, I'm financing it that way. Everybody might do it differently. So what's just the return if you paid cash?
So you buy a $100,000 house. Your NOI, say, at the end of the year is $12,000. Mm-hmm. In that ratio, or in a cap rate, you would have a 12 cap, right?
Right.
Because you're making $12,000 on a $100,000 investment.
Yeah.
So your return, if you were to go, say, buy equivalent of stocks for $100,000 in cash,
yeah,
right? You're comparing that investment to...
You're making 12% on the $100,000 investment.
Got it. And now, again, cap rate is not taking into account appreciation value or the sale event, right? It is not taking any of that equity. So
it's a snapshot calculation of what the value is today. So your cap rate, if your rents stay flat but the value goes up, your cap rate would be going down.
Because the house value will increase beyond what you purchased it for.
Yeah.
So that $100,000 house, if you had say you were in a market that had a lot of growth, but the property's worth 50% more than you paid for it in 5 years. Well, now you're taking that $12,000 NOI and dividing it by $150,000
bigger
house.
Number.
Got it. So
Makes
your
it
cap rate can go down.
Yeah.
Interesting.